Andy Katz, NBA draft analyst, is joining us. NBA TV, they have the expanded draft night coverage, along with Tom Penn, Steve Smith, Brendan Hayward. They'll be getting ready to get started Thursday at 7 Eastern, NBA TV. Andy joins us now. What do you make of that discussion we just had there, Andy?
Well, I was hoping you'd let me jump in, Dan, and it's great to hear your voice and great to be on with you again. Here's the deal. Zion Williamson is a personality, and he embraces it, and he is going to be a marketing, I think, the marketing icon of this group over the next couple of years. And so if I'm New Orleans, I'm coveting a player like this. And nothing against Anthony Davis, because we started to see him more in advertisements and things like that. But Zion Williamson has a magnetic smile. People are drawn to him. And so for a franchise like New Orleans, not like the Lakers, you don't need that as much there because there's so much about the Lakers in L.A. and all that. But for New Orleans, you need someone who people are going to gravitate to.
Yeah. And
Zion Williamson will do that. There isn't – I thought it was ridiculous at any point during the regular season when people were debating if there was going to be someone else, because no owner would turn him down, because he's going to put people in the seats. He's going to be great in the community. He'll do all the ads you need for you. And I think that he's the guy that you want at your franchise. Now, is he going to help you win more than Kawhi Leonard? No. But, for what that franchise needs right now in terms of attention and everything else that comes with that, he's the right fit.
Is there a chance Ja Morant and or R.J. Barrett will be recognized as better than Zion Williamson in 10 years, 5 years?
Yes, no question about it. And, that's the thing where I was at the lottery, and, the groaning that you could hear in Chicago from New York about not getting number one, while, yes, star value, Zion will deliver that, at Madison Square Garden. But R.J. Barrett, people forget, he was the number one pick, the projected number one, before that Kentucky game in November. So New York's still getting a number one talent. Ja Morant, yes, he was sort of came lately in terms of this position, but anyone that watched him during the season, you saw what he did against Marquette with a triple-double. He has the potential to deliver kind of like what Damian Lillard did for Portland, where people didn't know who he was, and he comes out and he's got a team, years later, that's got a chance to get to the finals and, obviously reach the Western Conference Finals. But Ja Morant, can potentially do something like that for a franchise like Memphis and be that kind of transitional player that can help a franchise get over the hump for years from now.
Where does the draft begin to go off the rails tomorrow night?
Well, right at 4, because while we've had years before with a consensus one in between this year and LeBron, you can go to Anthony Davis, John Wall, Blake Griffin. There have been other players that I think we could say unequivocally were the number one. Oh, Derrick Rose when he was going to Chicago. So I'd say those 4 in between LeBron and Zion Williamson. But I don't know. I don't remember a year where we knew unequivocally 1, 2, 3 like we do tomorrow night. But at 4, now with the Lakers pick going to New Orleans, and will New Orleans keep it? That's where everything really starts, because it could be Jared Culver, it could be DeAndre Hunter, it could be Kobe White, Darius Garland. Any one of those guys could be there. They could be on the move. And every team after that is going to have to react quickly within that 5-minute window to go off of that, because I don't think that any of these teams unequivocally know exactly who's going to be at their spot. I think there's going to be a lot of movement from 4 on down.
Yeah, I'm curious. We're talking to Andy Katz, NBA TV, NBA draft analyst, and I look at the Pelicans at 4 and who covets that spot if they want to get Garland, the point guard out of Vanderbilt. By the way, we have this all the time, usually in football, where there's somebody or a couple players that all of a sudden somebody goes, look out, here they come, and then they start moving up. What exactly? Garland just got healthy, I guess, since he didn't play that much. It's almost like he became more coveted because there's a mystery surrounding him. We weren't quite sure exactly who he is or what he is, but he's not, lacking confidence. He said he's the best point guard in the draft. What do you make of this meteoric rise with this kid?
Well, I think you have to wait and see. I mean, first of all, had he played, Vanderbilt would not have been 0-18 in the SEC. I don't know if they would have been a tournament team, but they certainly would have been a team that people would have talked about more. We would have seen much more of him. Now, you can be critical, and I think that's a fair thing, that he then bolted and did his own thing and wanted to make sure he was healthy for this moment, for the draft. You know, we could look at players like even Zion, who came back from his injury, or P.J. Washington, who still played in the tournament when he didn't know if he was going to play when he got hurt. Now, you could say, okay, that's much later in the season. You can't really fail on your team that late when you're into the NCAA tournament. But Darius Garland, he was recruited to Vanderbilt. He got hurt and decided, you know what, I'm now only going to take care of myself, and then he leaves. So then he does that, and he's sort of out of sight, out of mind. He was obviously one of the best point guards coming into the year, and now that he says, and I interviewed him as well in Chicago, and yes, he thinks he's the best point guard and probably thinks that he should be higher than John Morant. I don't think he will be, but, you know, if he ends up going at number 4, and whether he stays there or gets shipped, that would be a meteoric rise, and we'd have to just wait and see if, you know, he was correct on banking on himself and taking himself sort of out of action and just sort of doing his own thing over the last 5 months.
Yeah, but you have a team that already has a point guard. They already have a backcourt in New Orleans, and if Garland's there, it feels like New Orleans is going to offer up that pick for somebody. Would that be
well, and that's why,
logical?
That's why, yeah, no, you're right, but that's why, you know, we heard talks of the 4 going for the 8 and 10 with Atlanta, and that would not make sense if they selected Garland for that trade because you got Trae Young in Atlanta. So if he goes 4, then I do think he's on the move, but maybe somewhere else. I think that New Orleans has a great shot to get someone of value if they don't take him and were to take Jarrett Culver or DeAndre Hunter. What I love about those two guys is they embrace defense. They love to defend. And so they've got a skill that immediately can transfer to the NBA, and going in as a rookie, they're not going to complain or anything like that, that they want to defend. Their offensive games got better and better throughout their careers in the NCAA and will only get better. Culver, you know, first 2 years, first player at Texas Tech to score over 1,000 points. Sometimes he disappeared, but he was a timely shooter. Statistically, didn't always look that way, but he made the right shots. And Hunter, everyone remember, he did not play against UMBC. He was hurt. And he healthy this past year, and I'm not saying that's the reason, but they win the national championship. So he's got tremendous value. I think that's a better pick to go. Certainly if New Orleans keeps the pick, I think they should go either Culver or Hunter.
Is there a chance John Morant is better, more talented than Zion Williamson?
Well, I mean, they're different. So could he have more staying power and be like a Lillard? Sure. You know, he certainly could do that. And could Williamson ultimately, you know, not be the dominant player that he is in college? Of course he could. I mean, he basically played bully ball because he could in college basketball. I mean, he just was a freak athletically that no one could defend and no one was going to stand in front of until maybe he ran into Taco Fall. But you're not going to, you know, so that was sort of the anomaly. And that's not going to happen in the NBA because it's much more physical. There's much more size. So someone like John Morant can get around that. He can fly over people. Yeah, I mean, I think there's a chance that we could be talking more about him years from now. But I still say that Zion Williamson has the personality, and maybe John Morant will grow into it because he's not as much of an extrovert, but he's really started to embrace it because, you know, he was not overly recruited. He's got that chip, that edge, because he went to a place like Murray and had to prove himself. And when I've interviewed him, I sense a young man who is starting to find himself, starting to feel more comfortable in the public space, where Zion has been in that arena for quite some time. So I think Ja could evolve into that kind of player that becomes much more of a face of the franchise and one of the faces of the NBA.
I'll leave you with this. There's disappointment and then there's bust. Now, bust is extreme.
Yes.
Like Anthony Bennett would be a bust. Markelle Fultz right now is a bust. Greg Oden, because he got injured, I guess is a bust. Kwame Brown was a bust. Michael Olowokandi might be more of a disappointment than a bust. But how high up in the draft? Like, at what point can you not become a bust because you got drafted at 6 or 7? Like, a bust is usually 1 or 2, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you're forgetting one of the all-time busts in Darko Milicic. So
at number 2, yeah.
Yeah, number 2 when you think about what happened in that draft in 2003. So, yeah, I mean, for me, it's got to be somewhere in that top 5. After that, especially now when there's so many young players, it's hard to deem someone a bust. And, there's a lot of chatter about whether, Cam Reddish, will he pan out? And I've said this, I think he's sort of like the fifth Beatle, the guy that got lost in the shuffle among all the other players because he's not very outspoken and didn't sort of seek that kind of limelight and was not as much in the inner circle buddy group as Zion and RJ. But if he goes, somewhere in the 7 to 10 range, that's really not fair, and he doesn't pan out. I don't know if that's fair to say that he didn't work out and was a bust because he didn't end up going out in the top 3. Now, if all this hype that we're talking about John Morant and he completely, flames out, then yes, then that would be a fair assessment. But beyond, I'd say 4 or 5, I don't know if that's fair.
Andy, good to talk to you. Have fun tomorrow night and during free agency. We appreciate your time as always.
All right, thanks, Dan.
That's Andy Katz, NBA draft analyst and NBA TV's expanded draft night coverage. So Tom Penn, Steve Smith, Brendan Hayward, and others, Thursday at 7 Eastern, NBA TV also offering 30 hours of around-the-clock NBA free agency coverage beginning Thursday, June 27th, and continuing daily through Thursday, July 4th.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune into Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV. Stream for free on BR Live or download the Dan Patrick Show app.